As it turns out, all the fairy tales are lies. A European jewelry giant is currently starring in a real-life version of the Emperor's New Clothes in the Chinese market, but the one to finally expose the charade wasn't a child. It was millions of savvy Chinese consumers. When the affordable luxury label wears off and the magic of storytelling fails, how does a Western brand that once drove countless young women into a frenzy get stripped down to its bare essentials? All right, everyone, today let's dive into a business story that is pure magical realism. The Danish jewelry brand Pandora, yes, the one that sells the charm bracelets, has just performed a vanishing act in China. The original plan was to close 50 stores. But then the latest earnings report came out, they slammed the table and decided to think bigger. They doubled down and are now closing 100 stores. This is the corporate equivalent of a supermarket's buy one get one free deal on expired food, except they're giving away their own coffin lids. They're already packing up the severance packages. It's like they're playing a game of Candy Crush with their own store locations on the map of China. But if you think this is just another tired old story of a foreign brand failing to adapt, you are seriously underestimating the drama of this capitalist play. Let's talk numbers. In 2019, Pandora's sales in China were about 2 billion RMB. By 2024, that number had plummeted to just over 400 million. That's nearly 80% of its revenue, evaporated in 5 years. Even more damning, the China region went from being a cash cow contributing 9% of global revenue to a rounding error at just 1%. The magic box was once a source of dazzling success. Now its closure is just a source of bitter irony. When Pandora burst into China in 2015 with its one charm, one story fairy tale script, it played the affordable luxury game to perfection. With a single charm priced precisely between 398 and 898 yuan, it hit that sweet spot where it was painful enough for a young professional to feel it, but not so painful they'd have to cut off a limb. At its peak, 240 stores were brightly lit across the country, with queues at the counter that rivaled the chaos of a train station during Chinese New Year. In 2016, sales in China skyrocketed by 176%, a growth curve that had the Danish headquarters handing out Viking ship models as trophies. It was a phenomenon. But the shelf life of a fairy tale is often shorter than a carton of yogurt. 2020 was the fatal turning point. While the broader Chinese jewelry market was in a tailspin, Pandora made a fatal miscalculation. It mistook store expansion for a life raft. The result? Its inventory turnover days blew up from a healthy 120 to over 210. By the time they realized what was happening, their flagship stores in Beijing's most prestigious malls had already been replaced by Cartier and Ganni, without so much as a trending topic on social media to mark their passing. And when consumers realized that emotional stories don't pay the bills, Pandora's product flaws became the final crushing weight. The material itself is like a masterclass in reverse alchemy. The 925 sterling silver base turning black from oxidation is considered a standard feature. The zirconia stones are known to spontaneously disintegrate after 6 months of wear. One woman posted a furious complaint online. The limited edition charms she wore on her wedding day collectively took a dive into the soup during the toast, adding an unexpected metallic crunch to the banquet. The final, brutal judgment comes from the second-hand market. On Xianyu, China's eBay, a celebrity-endorsed bracelet that originally cost 2,380 yuan was listed for 399 with free shipping. After 3 months with no takers, it was sold to a recycler. The price, based on the scrap value of 925 silver, was less than 30 yuan. 30! By comparison, local giant Chow Tai Fook offers a robust gold buyback program. Pandora's ability to hold value is comparable to a defunct tech stock. While Pandora was in full retreat, local players were conquering the battlefield. The Guachao, or national wave of domestic brands, turned affordable luxury into a strategic masterclass. Laopu gold, using ancient filigree techniques, sold over 1 billion yuan on a single shopping holiday. Chow Tai-sang collaborated with the Palace Museum on a gold inlaid jade series that sold out instantly, despite high price points. Even more devastating was the channel revolution. Local brands mastered Douyin, TikTok, live streaming, where a single broadcast could generate more sales than a Pandora store does in 6 months. Meanwhile, Pandora was still treating its online flagship store like a digital dumpster for clearing out old inventory. And their product innovation? While local brands were using 3D gold printing to replicate ancient artifacts and aerospace materials to create futuristic rings, Pandora's 2025 spring collection was a new color for the Mickey Mouse charm. But here's the truly magical part. Pandora is doing just fine in the rest of the world. In 2025, the North American market grew 8%, thanks to the timeless strategy of selling charms for Mother's Day. This global split reveals the real disease. The Chinese market isn't a failing student. It's the smart kid in the class who was the first to see the emperor has no clothes. A Boston consulting group study blew the lid off the situation. For China's Gen Z, when buying jewelry, material and value retention as a decision factor weighs in at 47%. That's more than 3 times the importance of brand story. Pandora's head office, however, insisted that one global script would work for everyone. The result? Their 2023 Year of the Dragon charm was mocked online for looking like a genetically modified lizard. Their disastrous strategy was compounded by sky-high operating costs. When the CFO in Denmark saw the sales per square foot data from the China stores, you can bet that the closure list was written with more conviction than a breakup letter. So what's the last-ditch effort? A brand licensing model. Let Denmark handle the design and just outsource the sales and operations to local dealers. This sounds dangerously like the franchising model that has caused chaos in other industries. But the deeper paradox is this. As China's jewelry market enters a new golden age, what consumers want is actual gold. They want tangible assets. When Gen Z is buying gold bars as a form of punk rock wellness, a brand still peddling fairy tales is destined for the dustbin of history. The collapse of Pandora is, in essence, the collapse of a traditional brand narrative in an era of rational consumption. The most fatal flaw was a particular kind of Nordic arrogance. In 2021, when a customer complained about oxidation, a Danish designer publicly stated that the traces of time are a unique form of beauty. In 2023, facing the gold rush, the China CEO still insisted that emotional jewelry is irreplaceable. This condescending attitude, which treats consumers like aesthetic beggars, was ultimately slapped down by the market itself. It's not that Chinese consumers don't understand romance, it's that a generation that has lived through peer-to-peer lending scams and a volatile property market has had value retention burned into their DNA. So friends, the next time you see news of a Western brand retreating from China, don't be so quick to assume the economy is failing. The Chinese market has never been a graveyard for adventurers. It is a demon-revealing mirror that exposes a product for what it truly is. A modern poet might capture the moment like this. A Nordic tale that sailed across the sea unboxed a game of clever strategy, with silver charms that whispered sweet and low, then oxidized and let their true selves show. The luxury was light, the price a heavy game, but couldn't match real gold's enduring flame. 100 stores now close a final door, the bitter price of arrogance and more. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.